All right, so today we're looking at the Metabike Mystique, and I'm going to point out some of the features. This bike is a high racer by definition, but it's probably the lowest seat height of any high racer. It's about 23 inches here. To accommodate that, we use a one power idler, which is here, and two return idlers. So one of the things that we added is the TerraCycle return idler here, which helped a lot with the shifting. But this system uses, it hardly has any chain noise or any restriction in the pedaling. Now the features of the frame itself, it is titanium frame. We're going to make a titanium version in limited production, and then we're going to make aluminums as well. The titanium version is about 6.1, 6.2 pounds, depending on the frame size. There's two different frame sizes. This one is a 47-inch wheelbase, and then we have one with a 49-inch wheelbase. Most of the underside is, if we're going to draw a straight line across on top of the wheels here, you can see that a lot of the mass of the bike is down below the seat, unlike a lot of other high racers. This gives it a really low center of gravity, so it has excellent manners no matter what speed you're going. So handling is a plus compared to other brands. The other thing we use is our UFR handlebar setup. This allows it to be a very tight cockpit but still have good clearance. So I'm going to show you guys when I get on it. So first of all, I'm 5'7". I have plenty of room. Usually I can't ride a 700C without being tippy-toe like this. This is, I'm more than flat-footed. Even if I'm leaning back, which of course tips your hips, I can still put my feet flat on the ground. So good for starting and stopping. There's almost no anxiety when you stop and start. It is a fixed boom. So the fixed boom allows us to have a very stiff front end, a lot of good power transfer. It has a tapered head tube, so we have 1 1/8 to 1 1/4, or 1 5/8, I guess, is the lower cup, and then carbon fork, carbon steerer. The adjustability in the seat itself is from about, right now I usually run it about 25 degrees, but it'll go down to 15 degrees measured across the flat here, and then up to, I think, about 35 degrees. So a huge range of adjustment. The other adjustment is using the RAN's seat rail system. So this has an adjustment all the way up to this stop, all the way back to this stop, or actually this tube interferes, so it's going to go back to here. So it's about a 39 to a 47 in the standard size, and then in the larger frame you can go up to a 49 or 50. All right, so I wanted to show you some of the features of the UFR, which is not exclusive to this bike. It actually works on a lot of other brands. The UFR system looks similar to other brands, but the difference is in the angle of this stem. And so I designed it so the arc, when I turn, is a consistent direction. In other words, a consistent flat mount. So if you look, come around back here, if you look at how much clearance, now when you set up a high racer, you should set it up so that you can point your toe and your shin doesn't hit. So that's criteria number one. So this allows that, and it also allows a full arc of turning, right? So that's why it works so well on a lot of high racers, especially high racers that have a gap here. If you're in tight, I get this question a lot about other bikes. If you're in tight, then you should really have a tiller steering. But to get the most out, there are bikes like this can go either way. Also, I wanted to mention just the usability of this is when a taller person gets on this bike, we can move this stem out right here at this point, which allows a taller person to ride the same bike, given that the cables are long enough, can ride the same size bike even if there's 4 or 5 inches difference in their height. Another thing I wanted to address is just the chain line. It's designed so it's not hitting against any part of the the bike here. So unlike a lot of low slung high racers, the chain is not hitting the fork. It is tight in here, it's very narrow. I have room to pedal on both sides. Also, there's no interference with the chain hitting when I turn, which of course is a benefit. On some bikes, when you turn very tight, especially we're showing you in the small gear, they'll hit when you turn the front wheel. So this has clearance, and so the drivetrain is very clean. The idler system, this is one power idler like we talked about. I have it set up right now with a 2x10 system. It'll take 11 speed as well. The other kind of beautiful feature is with these dropouts and the way they're cut out, it's really easy to get the wheel in and out. You're not fighting that back wheel. The disc brake sits in between the two stays in the back, and I wanted to show that. The only modification we had to do to fit the brake, it does look tight, it is tight here, but we just put a flat head bolt for the cable, and that's the only thing we had to change, and it has clearance. Brakes are very good because it's spaced between 2 points here, so it's triangulated well, so that stops very well. Now, I wanted to mention two things compared. This is the prototype. Two things that are different, that'll be different on the production, is this will be closed, this will be capped off, and then we're moving this mount forward by about 100 millimeters, which will allow a better angle here and a fuller range. Right now they sit a little flat. Why is this bike so different? You know, why does it have so many tubes underneath the seat, right? And traditionally, at least in the US, it's been a stick frame. And stick frames straight across, like all the brands we know and love, a stick that goes across, which is a very inexpensive way to make a bike, depending on material, of course, but also it makes the simplest chain line because you just usually can get away with an over and under idler. The trade-off with the stick design is it won't fit shorter riders. It won't fit riders. Well, it'll fit riders that are tall very well, but tall riders tend to be strong riders, and what happens on a stick frame is it gets lots of twist. It gets a little inchworming. Also, the European style of high racer, which is an S-bend, right? So S-bend introduces another problem, which is the inchworm effect. So under power, the bike can go like this. So what I did, it does lower the seat slightly, but not by a lot. So a well-designed stick frame can have a seat as low as an S-bend frame, and that's been proven by a lot of designs out there. What I did is basically a hybrid truss frame. So we're taking the best of the front end, which is fixed, which I consider the best approach because it makes the stiffest front end for power. And then we incorporated it with a truss frame underneath. So a truss frame is going to give it some triangulation. Also, one of my criteria was to have, when it adjusts for different people, for different height people, the seat stays relatively the same height, right? Which we can't say about a stick frame. When we have a stick frame, taller people get it lower and shorter people get it higher, which is exactly the opposite of the way you want it. You want the shorter people to have the same benefit as the tall people. And so this does it. This also gives it a low center of gravity we talked about, but it's more like a ballast in a ship. So when you're going at high speeds especially, and low speeds, and at both ends of the spectrum, this bike does a great job of being very steady and sure-footed, and that makes a difference in the experience. So what happens a lot of time on a high racer, and I have many years of high racer experience, is high racers give you a feel of anxiety the more laid back you are, because starting and stopping and riding in traffic gives you this feeling like you're going to get taken over, right? So you learn to deal with that and you learn to push that down, but also when you stop and start on a hill, those kind of things. This bike, I had in mind to eliminate a lot of those anxieties, right, that people have. And also it'll introduce high racers to other people that are not necessarily, fast or ultra cyclists. So here's an example. So if I'm starting and stopping, I have a fairly upright, when I put my feet down, I can put one foot down, I can put both feet down. When I start and stop, it's easy to get going because of that low center of gravity. In a lot of ways, it feels like some of the low racers I've owned, but in a high racer form. So there's a lot of benefits to this design, and as far as overall feel, I'm not sure. I don't ride anything else anymore. So I know this is a sound design that's gonna, hopefully people can appreciate. Okay, so I wanted to show, demonstrate the UFR system and how this bike will fit a lot of different people as well. Now, we talked about the criteria for a good fit on a high racer. This has a lot of adjustability, like we talked about. We have a clearance here, and then, so I'm 5'7". I think my X seam's 42, 41 and a half, and I'm going to bring Tobin in here, and Tobin is, what are you, Tobin? 6'1". 6'1". So Tobin's 6'1", and we can show you, I'm not going to adjust anything, but you can kind of see that Tobin can get on. We can move the seat back just that little bit of amount there, an inch or so, and then he still has fairly good clearance here. Now, if I want to adjust this for him, I would just loosen that stem and move it up and out. So that still gives him a full range of motion. Dominant foot forward for me is left, and then it's just a real, you don't have to do a lot of energy because it's so low. Just an easy start. I'm clipped in right now, and then you can see a nice turning radius. Stop. 1 foot. So we're in Southeast Portland right now. This is in a park. We're doing a lot of the filming here. I'm just going up this little grade. It's about 4 or 5, maybe 6%. And this is a nice, easy uphill. Just kind of grinds away. No issues. I've done a lot of testing on this for uphill already. It's about 9 or 10 miles an hour I was doing there. I'm going to show a stop on the hill here so you guys can see a stop and start on a hill. Unclip. Here's a dead start, 4 or 5% hill. Doing about 17 miles an hour uphill right now.